Hey everyone, this week I want to talk to you about personal boundaries and how they can better define your role as a minister. Now, many of you are probably familiar with Henry Cloud and John Townsend's popular book on the subject. Their book is titled Boundaries. It was a bestseller. But I'd like to take that idea, to take that concept a step further and surmise what that might look like in the life of a pastor. A pastor who defines himself and his calling with appropriate boundaries is a lot less likely to get frustrated and burned out. So when we talk about boundaries, we're talking about what defines you and your ability to self-regulate and self-differentiate so that you can be you and nobody else. And boundaries make that possible. A healthy set of boundaries make it possible for you to know when to say yes and when to say no, and know in particular where your responsibilities pick up and where they leave off. So when you think about this in the context of leadership, you would have to conclude that a boundaryless pastor is not really a functioning leader. Instead of leading, he or she is being led. So I love the wisdom that was shared by one of our students in Module 1 who made the following statements, and I'll quote: "A pastor is not recognized as a pastor until he or she has said no to a church member and that member chooses to remain in the fellowship instead of leave. If a member leaves when we say no or wait, then we are left to wonder if that person has truly come under pastoral leadership in the first place. They may attend our church, but they haven't bought into Christ's model of leadership for the church." So I want to say thank you to Michael for sharing that example. It reminds us of the importance of boundaries. Now, this whole idea of self-defining and self-regulating is explored academically through the writings of Edwin Friedman, who was a family systems theorist. And Friedman wrote a book that I would encourage you to get, and it's titled A Failure of Nerve, Leadership in the Age of the Quick Fix. And so if you want to become more acquainted with Friedman's works, A Failure of Nerve is a great place to start, because he discusses at length what it means to lead through self-differentiation. So just in closing, I want to leave you with some final thoughts about this subject matter. I believe that Jesus exhibited these qualities in his life and in his ministry. When you think about Christ, I'm convinced that Jesus was the most self-differentiated person who ever lived. Jesus had very clear boundaries, and so should we. He never gave in to the demands of his disciples. He resisted the expectations that were placed upon him. So when we think about Jesus in his life, we're left with no other choice but to conclude that Jesus lived to the glory of the Father and not to the praise of men. Well, so much more could be said on this subject, more than we can get into in this short video segment, but I at least hope that some of what has been shared will whet your appetite to put some of these ideas into practice. We need to have healthy boundaries in the pastorate, so that we're more effective and so that we're functioning from the standpoint of leadership and we're operating in the capacity of being a leader. Thanks for listening.